When we say grow with Gray, we mean Gray gets you where you want to go. With more than 100 markets and top-rated stations from coast to coast, you will find the perfect fit. Cover the nation's biggest events, create award-winning content, and tell stories that matter to your community. Gray invests in investigative journalism, a culture of asking questions and finding solutions. Gray's growth-focused, customized training is designed to help you succeed and get you to the next level. Gray knows you deserve the best benefits in the business. Seriously. And bosses who understand work-life balance. So get noticed, get going, and start growing. Grow with Gray.
Thanks for spending part of your evening or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, with us here from Gray. My name is Jennifer Dale. I'm Vice President of Recruiting for Gray, and here to talk. Super excited to talk to you tonight about journalism. With us tonight, Tom Bell, who's our news director at our station in Las Vegas, and Gary Wordlaw, who's our news director in South Bend. Want to give them just a couple of minutes to introduce themselves and tell them about their journey in journalism. Tom, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, let's see. I don't have Gary beat. I learned that a couple of minutes ago, but I've been doing this for about 44 years. And I had to make the list, actually, of the places that I've been a news director. They're Detroit, St. Louis, Phoenix, Salt Lake, San Antonio, Sacramento, and Las Vegas. Because I'm just too tired to do another one. So Vegas is where we landed. No, it's been an amazing ride with a number of different companies. And we'll get to some of the things in a couple of minutes that will allow you to begin the kind of journey that you're looking for, because there are some very simple truths. But I can tell you, I wouldn't change anything if I had to do it over again. It's been wonderful, and probably the biggest takeaway for me is I really do think that in my career, myself and the people that we've worked with, because of what we do, we've contributed to making life better for folks, and that's a pretty good day at the office.
And I'm Gary Wordlaw, and I began my career back before your parents were probably even born. I've been around for about 55 years of doing this. And basically, I started at a little station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, as a floor director. How I got into news is I went upstairs and I would try to hang around the news department because that's always where I wanted to be. And it was at a time in the late 60s when kids were walking out of schools. African-American kids were walking out of schools in protest. Well, nobody in the newsroom wanted to go take a camera and film a protest. I'd never held a camera in my hand, but I figured, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. So I told the news director, well, let me go. I can go take care of that. Fine. Off I went with my little Bell and Howell, rack and pinion camera, and I shoot this protest, and we get back, we process the film. It wasn't great, but because I took advantage of the opportunity, I was promoted into the news department. Now, I'm going to give you the rest of the story. I've used that job to go through many markets. The largest news director's job I had was vice president of news of a station in Washington, D.C. The smallest market I think I've worked in was Bellingham, Washington, which is no longer a market. It's part of the Seattle market. But getting back to that film, to tell you how life is, there was a young girl sitting on a bus stop who wasn't part of the protest, but she happened to have been someone that I focused on in this film. Well, as it turns out, they took a bunch of those old cans of film and they buried the film in the walls of the television station. 30 years later, they decided to build a new station. So they took those archival films out of the wall. Lo and behold, the first film I ever shot was labeled, and they sent it to me. Well, I was so excited. I took the film down to a shop in They put it on a DVD, and I told my wife to come in. Let's look at this film. We popped it into the old player. The girl on the bench turned out to be my future wife. How's that for a love story? Well, I love this business because of that, and I've been in it ever since. And every morning I wake up, I feel special because I have the kind of job that only a few people in towns have, and that's to be able to tell people what's going on in their community and to help them live life maybe a little better because I was part of the truth telling.
Well, Gary, I think we may have hit the high point of this entire conversation there. So thanks for allowing me to be the one that gets to follow that, because I have no touching love story within the walls of the station. But what I do have is the ability to introduce you to the rest of the recruiting team. Stephen Cruz, Nicole Karras, and Ashley Bressler are all here. If you have questions about everything as you go through, they'll be monitoring the chat. So we'll do our best to answer them as we go. But what I want to do tonight is kind of try to walk you through. We're going to take a look at some things about our company, but mainly I really wanted to focus on some of the jobs in television. I talk to young people and people who are just starting their career who think that they want one thing in television, but it may not be exactly, they get into it and it's not exactly what they thought. So what we're going to try to do tonight is kind of give you a real view of what we do as broadcast journalists, digital journalists. And as you have any questions, just give us a yell. So the map that you see on your screen is of every location. Well, actually, there's a couple of missing. There's a few missing there because on that, but is a lot of our locations. Gray Television owns stations in 113 markets. Hold up, there we go. We own the most top-rated television stations in the country. 38 states, including Washington, D.C. And one of the things, and these are just a few highlights, we touched on it in the opening video of what really kind of makes, I feel, Gray so special. Our company minimum wage is $18 an hour. It's one of the higher minimum wages in broadcasting. That does not mean that's going to be all you ever make. It just means you're never going to be offered a full-time job making less than that. We offer free health care to all of our full-time employees, 5% 401k match, paid parental leave, expanded PTO, and we're going to dig into it a little bit more later. But we have a team of executive trainers, so every new producer, reporter, and photographer that is hired into our company gets live training from our team of executive trainers, in addition to the training that we do on the local level. So a local television station is broken up generally into 6 departments. The news department, which is what we'll spend most of our time talking on tonight, and the department that everyone on the call tonight with Gray worked in before they either moved into management or moved into recruiting. Sales, marketing, creative services, engineering, and production. Can you sorry, I got distracted. My screen isn't being shared. You guys don't see a slide show it breaking those out?
I do.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll keep going. I don't know what's going on there. And I won't get distracted by the chat. I'll have Stephen, Nicole, or Astrid, if you guys could split up if there's something I need to know and doesn't look quite right. First position we're going to talk about is one near and dear to my heart, a news producer. I was a news producer in my first job before, and I produced happily for 8 years before moving into management. A news producer is the glue that holds a newsroom together and holds a newscast together. If you imagine a newscast being a wheel, the producer would be at the center, holding the spokes in place. They write a majority of the words that you hear, and they write and design the newscast, and they make sure things go smoothly no matter what. Gary, I know you bring in a lot of young producers to your newsroom. What would you think, and what would you want someone who is maybe thinking about this as a career to know about being a producer?
The first thing I do is I try to recruit people who have a natural curiosity. I need people who are curious about the world and don't want to just sit back and take no for an answer, but they sort of have an investigative spirit. They also have to have a love for the words. If you can't write, you're going to have a hard time working in this business. And if you can write, you're going to have a very long career in this business. But don't worry if you don't have all of the skills day one. Part of the fun of this job is being able to guide young people and help them, hone their craft to become better at it. But the one thing that I look for, another thing I look for, is people who have the energy to want to work. I want people who want to show up on time, who have that spirit that they want to learn. They want to be good newsroom citizens. They want to come in and just be a part of the fabric of what makes us good.
And there's a lot of opportunities for producers in our company, and nationwide. As I've been doing, I've been I've been a journalist for a long time, for 20 years. Not as long as Gary, but long enough that I remember when I was first starting out, I was told about all the opportunities for being a news producer. Most stations, even our smallest ones, many of our salons have at least 8 producers, and there's a decades-long shortage of qualified applicants. We have openings for producers in most of our markets. Can you talk a little bit, Tom, about what a producer does at your station?
Sure, you said it. It is the glue. The process here is like a lot of other TV stations. We start out in the morning, decide through a process what we're going to cover. The producers at that point take a look at what's available, their thoughts about the day, and then they begin to create. If you are a creative person, if you're a person who loves writing, producing could be for you. And a pro tip, it's probably the easiest job to get in TV right now because the demand is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I checked earlier today. We have openings for 53 producers nationwide. If you put that, that's, so I mean, really with 113 markets, that's, not every market has an opening for a producer. One thing to remember, and you think about as you start this career, is television markets are kind of organized from largest to smallest by number. The largest market is New York, with our smallest market being somewhere in Montana that I can't remember because we don't own a television station there. So the larger the market size and the larger the city, generally the more experience you have to work in that area. Generally, when I was a news director, most recently in Charleston, South Carolina, which was around market 88, 89, depending on the year, I would generally and sometimes hire people with no experience producing, and we would teach them. And Gary, I know that's probably something you do in South Bend as well. Probably not something that Tom does in Vegas. So
actually,
I'll
just jump in and which is the reason I brought it up. We have, as I'm thinking through our staff right now, we've got a senior morning producer who's been here 4 years, directly out of ASU. We've got another morning producer who came directly from UNLV. And because this station is a pretty successful place, we're blessed to be able to pick the cream of the crop. But I got to tell you, the news directors that I talk to, finding, retaining producers is probably their number one. It's at the top of the list because it is, as Jennifer said, it's such an important job. The words that you hear generally, if they're not being spoken by a reporter, are being written by a producer. So it's not a bad place to, if anything you've heard here excites you in that way, it isn't a bad track to begin thinking about.
Currently, I have 8 producers. 5 of them are in their first year.
So, it is a position that you can start out of, without it. You need to be able to write a grammatically correct sentence. I usually tell people that if you can write a grammatically correct sentence, I can work with that. But everything we do stems from a love of writing. Every job that we're going to talk about tonight in the news department stems from a love of writing and a love of storytelling. It may not always be video storytelling. I know someone asked a second ago about, does a university newspaper count? Yes. Some of my best hires I've ever made were print journalists who were looking to transition into television. So, I mean, you could, but they all have to have one thing in common. You have a love of writing, a love of creation, and a love of sharing the news and sharing facts. Stephen, did you have a question?
I was going to throw the newspaper one out there.
Oh, okay. Yes. In fact, Stephen would be a good one. That was Stephen's background, was as a print reporter.
Well, and I saw it and I was going to throw it to you, but yeah, I started out in newspaper, did that for the first decade of my career. And so I transitioned into producing. It was a little tricky at first, but once I got used to it, I loved it. It was one of my favorite roles in the newsroom.
I loved, I produced for 8 years before I moved into management. And truly, I loved it. I loved using video and pictures to tell a story and to tell the day's story. That's kind of how I look at producing. So we'll move on, or else we'll just sit here all night and talk about producing. And I know there's other things that we need to get to. So let's talk about being an MMJ, a reporter. You know, a reporter is the conduit between the community and the newsroom. They pitch impactful stories daily. They shoot, edit, and write their own content and turn fresh stories every night. And they're equally talented at broadcast writing as web writing. Tom, what do you think? What do you look for? Like what really sets a reporter apart in your mind when you're looking to hire one?
Being engaged in what I call the process here. We do 16 hours of news a day, every day. So it's a machine, and it eats a lot of content. So the most valuable reporters I have are the ones who will come up with good ideas. They're aware of what's going on around them. They do more than look at a couple of Facebook pages and their Nextdoor app. They pay attention. And once they get into the stream of really looking for opportunities to tell stories that are meaningful, and by that I mean context, perspective. One thing we don't do here, by the way, we are thank God, incredibly successful. And because everybody in this room understands that the brand of television we do here at this great TV station is not stand out in front of a burned out building and tell you what the fire looked like. It's really bringing value to viewers. So I value reporters who bring that. I will tell you one skill when you, and I'm jumping ahead maybe just a little bit, but I want to get it in before I forget it. For most of you, you either are or will be at some point, if you're looking to get into television, putting a tape together. And perhaps to become an MMJ or a reporter. And there's probably a pretty good chance that initially you will not have found your authentic self on camera. It's scary, and the more help you ask for in an internship, if you're lucky enough to have one, benefits you. But here's another pro tip. When I hear good writing, we talked about that for producers, it's just as important for a reporter. When you draw me in with the words that you write because you really thought about them, I'm in. And to use Jennifer's words, we can work with the rest of it. But I just need people who are engaged. Again, it all goes back to storytelling, producing, or being an MMJ, being a reporter, being an anchor. Everything is about telling valuable stories as far as I'm concerned.
And an MMJ stands for multimedia journalist, if anyone in here is wondering. An aspect of a good MMJ, you have to be curious. Again, you have to be a good writer. Be flexible. News does not ever happen at convenient times. Let's just be real. I mean, it's 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and we're sitting here talking about journalism. I'm usually getting my daughter ready, getting ready for bed at this time. The news does not happen at convenient times. If you decide you want to pursue this as a career, you're going to be working nights and weekends. You're going to be working overnights at some point. You're going to be working when your friends are probably not working. Or holidays. I've worked Christmas, I've worked Thanksgiving. You have to have a love of journalism, or frankly, you're probably not gonna like this job. I always tell people you gotta love it or you're gonna hate it. Don't think that you'll be turning features. Will you turn some features? Probably absolutely, but most of your stories will probably be hard news. And that's because our job is to serve the viewers and tell them what they need to know. I know that a couple of people have asked about sports. I'll tell you straight up, sports jobs are the most competitive. I actually pulled those numbers Tuesday for a visit that I did. Gray has 9,300 employees. So we had about 53 news producer openings. I'd say we have about 65 multimedia journalist openings. When it comes to entry-level sports, 2. There were 2 more that was new sports hybrid. So if your dream is to do sports, you probably need to think really hard about becoming a good news reporter. And you'll have to make a reel. Tom touched on this just a bit. What should an MMJ reel look like? If you don't know what an MMJ reel should look like, I highly recommend that you go to YouTube and search in quotes MMJ reel. You'll quickly be able to determine the good ones from the bad ones when you watch them. But generally, an MMJ reel is a montage of 5 to 7 stand-ups that demonstrate storytelling. And what I mean by that is video of demonstrating your storytelling, not necessarily you in front of things, you telling how what you are doing is pushing the story forward and giving meaning to the viewer. 3 well-written packages, 2 or 3 well-written packages. And if you are, again, lucky enough to do an internship, or you're in college at a spot that has an on-campus television station, live shots, if you have them, that's not a requirement. Gary, is there anything else that you look for in an MMJ reel?
I look for people like Tom mentioned earlier, who can demonstrate that they're good storytellers, whether you're telling the story live or whether you have a package story. You have to be able to communicate. Tom mentioned your authentic self. That doesn't necessarily come overnight. I've seen some young people who want to mimic their favorite person on television. And so they put together a reel to sound like Tom Brokaw or David Mee or somebody. Well, that's not who you are. You've got to be who you are. And so what I try to tell young people, when you look into the camera, who are you looking at? Well, the one kid said, oh, there are thousands of people looking at me. Well, the camera lens is about that big. So I say, look, talk as though you're talking to your mom. Your mom's going to give you, she's going to love you. And the audience is going to respect and love you if you're honest with them. So be your honest self as well. It's okay to be human. We're not automatons. And so you write well, you talk well, you communicate well. And those are the really fundamentals of being able to be a good storyteller. I think that we're all reporters to some degree. We see an accident on the way home. We go home, we tell our husband, wife, or kids what we saw. And we don't use $50 words to do it. We talk to the people that we're communicating with in a language that they understand. And so just be real.
Tom, did you have anything else to add? Or did we?
Yeah, I just actually, I'm going to do a shameless plug for a book. Not my book, but there's a guy who worked for me in Phoenix. His name is Jeff Butera. Jeff is currently an anchor in Florida. He wrote a book called Write Like You Talk. Write Like You Talk. If you have a spare $30 and you want a master class in 150 pages, you can pick it up on Amazon. I get no commission off of Jeff's books. I wish I did. But it's really a key. You look at this is How many folks do we think may be tuning into this, Jennifer?
It looks like right now we have 220 with us.
Okay. So there's 220 people that want the same job you do at some point when you get ready to do it. I can't stress enough, and I think you've heard it from Jennifer and you've heard it from Gary. If you can tackle writing first in any job, and by the way, this is not just television. I mean, television, is what we do, and it's a very important part. But my responsibilities are also social and digital, and we're the market leader in both here in Las Vegas. The writing is across the board. You aren't born with it, you learn it, but if you lead with that, as Gary said, everything else will come in time, because it's so, honestly, I find it rare, even at this level, and you heard the markets that I've worked in. I bet you I can count on two hands the number of people who were truly excellent writers and storytellers. So if you want to make a mark in the business and start out with a strong card, and then be able to develop that over the time of your career, no matter what TV looks like or social or digital looks like, and things change, good local value-driven content for your audience, whether it's on TikTok or on TV or on your favorite social media platform, is always going to drive the bus. So get out ahead of, I would just encourage you to get out of that ahead of time. You will put yourself in a very special class of people, and you go to the front of the line for whatever part of the business is interesting to you.
Hey, Jennifer, I'm going to throw a couple of questions at y'all that have come up. Someone put in, hold on just a second, I'll find it. Teresa asked, should I submit a reel even if I do not want to be an MMJ?
It depends on what job you are going for. If you're looking for a producer job, and you have produced a newscast before, by all means, send a copy of that newscast. If you don't have a reel, maybe some examples of your writing for something that you have written. If you don't have either one of those things, many times, if you contact us, we can give you a writing exercise that will allow you to have some examples of your writing that you can show news directors as you apply for jobs. And then I saw somebody else ask too about what if I don't have a way to shoot a reel? Here's my answer. Aren't we all carrying little video cameras in our pockets these days? I know that we shoot video. We shoot video on phones all the time. In fact, Nicole shot a promo not too long ago using a phone to promote one of our upcoming visits. Did you have another question in there, Stephen?
No, that was going to be the next one. That was going to be the next one.
Ah.
If they didn't have a station on campus, how to go about doing a reel.
Okay. Well, we will move next to, we'll talk about being an anchor. I mean, most people, when they think about what we do, hold up, there we go. You think about our anchors at our local television stations, but an anchor is not a prompter reader. We were actually just discussing this before we went live with this and let everyone in. Gone are the days of when an anchor would read the stories that someone else would write and then go home and take a 2-hour lunch break. An anchor should be the best known journalist at a television station. They should have the best sources in the newsroom. They should break important stories, because truly content is the currency of the future. This is something I always wanted to preach to everyone in my newsroom, is that what you are putting out for the viewer is valuable. If it doesn't, once that value, so yours. If you think about it, I saw someone saying, I have a TikTok channel, I have a YouTube channel. What happens if nobody watches those things that you do? You don't get paid. Think about it that way. I mean, that's not necessarily how a television set up, but content is the currency of the future. What you are able to bring to the table that is valuable to an organization also helps determine your value. Tom, you were talking a bit about, before we logged on, about how your anchors and how you guys structure things. Could you maybe describe the day in the life of one of your anchors?
Sure. We're a little bit different. Like I said, we produce 16 hours of news a day. All of our, anyone you see on TV at this television station is an anchor/reporter. Anchor/reporter. So when you think about it, someone has to anchor those 16 hours a day. So I need people to do that. But what really, boy, I can't stress this enough, as Jennifer just said, the content is the thing. We are very successful, thank goodness. And honestly, it is a part of it is because we're on so much. But I can tell you the bigger part is it's the content. So we start out in the morning, and we're not like a lot of other TV stations because we just work harder at it. We want to make sure that it's kind of a dull word that I use all the time when somebody said, what do you think? Why do you guys perform so well? And it's value. It's the same sort of reason that, why do you watch a particular, channel, whatever you use on your phone, or restaurant that you go to, or a movie, or name it, because it brings you value in however you define value. And if it stops bringing you value, you move on to somebody else. So we spend a lot of time. We spend about an hour and a half every morning going through all of the story possibilities, and all of our anchor reporters contribute to that. We decide how the stories are going to be told, what those stories are going to be, how they're going to be told. And the anchor reporters carry generally most days an anchor shift and also report. It works like a charm. And I'll tell you, it attracts the best journalists because they're people who want to have that anchor connection with the audience, but by the same token, they also understand that content drives the bus. So we are a little bit different. Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to mention is you said value, and let's talk about the value in content, because what many times that we see people will send to us, like I get a reel that will have a short like a short video or show that someone did, or sometimes it's a TikTok video showing with an opinion on it. Let's talk about what a viewer finds valuable, because we spend a good deal of money on market research, saying what does someone tune in to one of our television stations for, or one of our websites. What are people looking for? And every market I've ever worked in, the number one driver of that has been breaking weather, severe weather, usually followed by breaking news, breaking weather, investigative journalism, things that someone can't find somewhere else. What, Gary, why don't you tell me what sort of content you are looking for in someone that you're hiring on a reel, and what sort of content someone who wants one of these jobs will be of value to the viewer? What can they expect to cover?
I would like to hire people, and I try to hire people that are solution-based journalists. We can all go out and shoot the accident at the corner of the block or the house fire. But when you drill down and you ask people in any market what really drives them to the television set, they don't want us just to tell them what the problems are. They want to help find the solutions. And if we have reporters and anchors who are reporters that can do solution-based journalism, it really endears them, I think, to the market. Investigative journalists are very good at not only presenting something that I didn't know, but they also help me to appreciate what the end of the story is. And so I think it's important that journalists know that. I also look for people who aren't afraid to work hard, who aren't afraid to look for the second and third and fourth source in their story. I look for people who can develop trust with the community. One of the biggest problems we're having media across the board is that people don't trust us like once they did. Why don't they trust us? Because so many of us have become opinion hosts, as opposed to just give me the story and let me decide for myself. I don't think we teach people or we don't tell people what to think, but we do tell them what to think about. And if we're doing that, that's full of opinion, that's biased, of course, they're going to turn us off. And so I want hardworking journalists who can present a story, present the truth, and then, connect with the audience that way. One young man that worked for me a ways back was that kind of guy. He just never seemed to take no for an answer. He was just that driving kind of reporter. So, of course, we made him an anchor. And once he got on the anchor desk, he brought that same energy to the desk. And then we had this unfortunate problem in New York where a couple of airplanes flew into a building. We know the 9/11 story. Well, he was the person that I sent to cover that story. That guy stood there for about 30 hours. I don't know how he did it, but he just never stopped talking. Whenever we would come to him, well, he was there. Well, he did such a great job that CBS caught his act, so to speak, and wanted to use him to do some live shots for them as well. Well, he did that. By the time he got back to the station, the big event was winding down. I got a phone call from a friend of mine in Boston who says, hey, I was watching, and I saw this guy, and he works for you. I think he's your anchor. I want to hire him. And I'm in Syracuse, New York at the time. You want to take my guy from Syracuse, New York to Boston? Yes, we do. I said, well, I'm not going to stand in his way. Well, his work spoke for itself. So he goes to Boston. He's there for a year. She gets a call from New York City, and they say, hey, we saw your guy, and we want to hire him. Well, to make a long story short, his name is David Meir, and he is now the anchor for ABC. From Syracuse, New York, to the anchor desk in just a few years. His work spoke for itself. Your work can speak for itself if you have that kind of drive, that kind of determination, and that's what as news directors we're looking for.
Gary, I just want to sit here and listen to more stories from you. So I didn't see that one coming.
I got a million of them.
Well, there we go. I think, and that's one thing you have to remember when you do this is that you're going to see some tough things. He said about, the reporter standing 30 hours outside, as 9/11 happened and reporting on it. That's a real thing. I was on the Gulf Coast during Hurricane Katrina. It's a hard thing. We see things and we experience things that many people run away from. In some ways, you will see what a first responder does, but you have a chance to make a difference in someone's life. I remember during Katrina answering phones in the newsroom of people who were in their houses, the water was coming in, and they called because they knew that we were on air and that there was someone there, but I couldn't help them. All I could do was be there to listen to them when they were going through what had to have been the worst part of their lives. So, but we do have the chance to help. I always say, as a journalist, every day we have the chance to change the world. Sometimes we do it in a big way, and sometimes we do it in a little way. Just that one question. And to me, that's the reason it's always been worth the hours. But it's a hard job, but it's so rewarding and valuable. All right, I'm going to click ahead to the next slide. We're talking about meteorologists. I know we have at least one person on this call who wants to be a meteorologist. I saw Daniela in here, and I remember talking with Daniela not too long ago. Meteorologists, there's usually at least 4 per station, sometimes more. Now, a meteorologist has 4 distinct shifts. Early morning, which is usually like 3:30 to 12:30, 3:30 a.m. You see them in the mornings. Night side, 3 to midnight, weekend mornings, and weekend evenings. At the end of the day, the job of a meteorologist is to save lives. Again, I mentioned being on the Gulf Coast during Katrina. I don't think I truly understood until that, because I was still young in my career. At that point, that being that a meteorologist, how much I depended on them, and knowing that they were calm kept me calm, and that life-saving information to a viewer. So, we do have some meteorologists are also usually the scientists of the newsroom. We are we've only got like 20 minutes left, so I'm going to click ahead to some of these other things so we have time to get to some questions. A digital content producer. There's a lot of confusion about what a digital content producer really is. In the journalism realm, a digital content producer generally uses traditional print writing techniques to create content for our station websites. And what I mean by that is they write news stories. They manage our station social media accounts and help manage our streaming platforms. We don't hire people. If your desire is to solely make TikTok videos or do podcasts, we don't generally have anyone whose sole job is that. Those are an element of what we do. So a digital content producer is truly, if you come from a print background and you took print classes in college, then that's usually the obvious transition first. News producers, those other things can be done. This one is the first easiest one. All right, so I'm going to move on next to marketing creative services, which is another department, and we're going to have a little short video to go with that.
I get asked all the time where I work, so let me tell you. I'm a marketing producer for a local TV station called Wave. In other words, I get to make the news look cool. I create Instagram and TikTok content, produce podcasts, film promos and commercials, write scripts, fly drones, and advertise the station. The best part is that every day is different. As a creator, it would drive me insane to do the exact same thing every day. Because what's trendy is ever evolving, I get to come up with creative ways to push the industry forward and stay one step ahead of our competition while doing the one thing that I absolutely love as a creator, creating.
So a marketing creative services department is usually a fairly small department compared to a news department in a television station. You know, they create that original content that promotes both the news and our business partners. I think I checked earlier, I think we have 21 openings nationwide in marketing and creative services. They can be kind of competitive, but what a fun job to create the promos. I always thought it'd be super cool to do that. All right, the sales department. We've all watched television. We know exactly what a commercial is. The sales departments help grow businesses, both our customers and our own. If you end up working with us as an account executive, you'll work with clients to create commercial plans to promote their businesses. And usually, account executives work on commission, so you control your own destiny. The more you sell, the more you make. Broadcast IT engineer. If anybody on here has a technical aspect background, they make sure we stay on the air. They work on everything from our computers to our transmitters, keeping us on the air. There's also a shortage of those right now because so many of our engineers came up through the military and they're reaching retirement age, and everything's going IT based. But it is definitely worth talking about that being a part of the department. All right, let's talk about getting started in television. I see a lot of questions in this chat about our internship program. Now, I'll tell you straight up, while we do take interns in every market, in Gray, they are super, super competitive. It's because we only do paid internships. We took several hundred interns last year. It's a fully immersive experience. You'll work alongside the professionals in your desired career. We do have them open year round in all 113 Gray markets. And if you are hired for an internship, you will be front of the line for a full-time job because of Gray's first consideration policy. Now, here's the questions that we get all the time. Interns are hired at the local level. I was in Roanoke Tuesday. And I know that the last time they had an internship, they had the last internship opening that they had well over 100 applicants. So we will never be able to hire everyone who has an internship. The things that you can do in order to make yourself more valuable is that include examples of your writing. If you have a reel, include examples of your reel. To be applicable for an internship with us, you do have to be a college student. This internship doesn't have to be for college credit, but you do have to be a student. Gary, can you talk about what your last intern did at WNDU?
Well, I currently have 3 interns. One is a photographic intern. She's She's a photographer like everybody else. She came in with a little bit of background in photography, but we're using her now as one of our staff photographers, and she's very good. I have an intern that's working as an MMJ. She's a senior at Goshen College, very small school, but her skill level, she'd worked in radio. And so she is actually next in line to get an MMJ job here should one come available at the end of her internship. And yet another is in our producing program. She's working alongside our executive producer, and she's writing copy for a couple of our newscasts. So our internships are hands-on. Everybody who comes in actually works the job. If I pay you, you're gonna earn the money. And so we don't let people come in and watch. They come in and do.
Okay, a lot of questions in the chat. What about people who recently graduated with no experience? How are we supposed to get the experience? What I would recommend is you've got to figure out how to set yourself apart. I would apply for jobs depending on what they are in small markets. I would focus on maybe producing positions in some of our tiniest markets, because they're more generally going to apt to hire someone without experience. That's probably what I would recommend the most. I mean, again, if you don't have any examples of work from college, you don't have, I mean, if you have a journalism degree, you probably wrote for, at least for class, those would be examples. And again, we can send you a writing exercise. You know, and again, we're very good at training people. You know, we do kind of, we like to have, you have to have some sort of base of knowledge, you know, at least about writing usually to work with us. But I'm going to flip ahead to a video next about what our training, about how we train.
I didn't know a thing before I started producing. With the MMJ training, I feel like it was a lot more creativity. Like fun stand-ups and using gnats to do different things and tell the story. Just a lot of things I didn't think about.
If you have the opportunity, mic yourself up.
I learned so much about just like the editing of how to put together a really cool package and make it super visually appealing.
The object is to raise your light, push shadows down.
The content was engaging, and then they requested feedback, and then they asked questions, and we got to ask questions.
It made me feel like I was not the only one trying to figure it out.
As we start to put this story together, there's a natural order of things.
Working with local news and seeing the impact that it's directly making within your own community is like life-changing.
The information was invaluable. I've used like all of it since, and I've tried to incorporate more things in my stories every day.
Since my training, I've emailed Vincent once or twice to get his advice on things, and he responded immediately and gave me advice and showed me how to do things, and so I'm really appreciative.
With these opportunities, especially with Gray, that, you know, I know that people at competing stations and companies don't get, it's definitely making my experience a lot better, and I'm seeing those changes that are elevating us compared to other people in the industry.
Right. So, I mean, we do train. We don't expect someone in all of our markets to come in and automatically know how to do these things. You know, but again, it all comes back to writing. You got to be able to write. At least, you know, you have to be able to write. I saw a question a couple of times about international students and working and you have to be able to work for Gray. You do have to be able to work legally in the U.S. without sponsorship. Usually students have a year that they can work in the U.S. until they have to have be sponsored for a visa. We do not sponsor visas. You have to be able to work, legally work for us to do so. All right, we're going to talk about the Gray Talent Pool because we have about 11 minutes left. And this is a Gray Talent Pool is basically a network for our hiring managers. If you're looking for a position and you're looking to do it later, you probably want to create a Gray Talent profile. Let's see, hold up. All right, so what you do with a Gray Talent profile, upload your reel and resume, list your job and location preferences. For example, if you aren't quite sure if you want to be a producer or an MMJ, and you're interested in working in, like I'm from Alabama. So let's say I wanted to go home and I'm interested in working in Birmingham, Huntsville, Dothan, and Mobile. I can put all of those into my Gray talent profile. I can list my availability dates. Like for example, if I'm still in college and I don't graduate till May, I can put in as my availability date as June 1st. As your reel, you update your reel, and as your preferences change, you can log back in. And once you fill out that Gray talent profile, it comes to me or another member of the recruiting team. We take a look at it, make sure that everything is in it that you need to be there, your resume, your reel, all of it, everything that our hiring managers would need. And when I approve it, it gets pushed out to every hiring manager you identified. That's for all of our positions, news, sales, marketing, and engineering, and it's for any stage of the career. Gary, can you talk to me a bit about who you've hired, about how you've used the Gray Talent Pool and who you've hired?
I'm probably a Gray Talent Pool zealot. I put it on my computer first thing in the morning, and it's probably the last thing that I take off at the end of the day. For several reasons. I love watching the young people who come on there to put the work out there for us to look at. I enjoy it. I see some of old students of mine on there. But it's also a wonderful place for me to go and find you. I've hired, I'm just looking in the newsroom now, I think since I've been here 5 months, I think I've hired 8 people right off the talent pool. So it's a great way for me to cut through all of that stuff out there that people are sending me, because I have the way it's organized. I mean, when you go on there, you put your resume on there, you put your reel on there, you tell me a bit about yourself, and it's just one-stop shopping for me. And so I really enjoy going there. It's constantly updated. Remember, we have 113 stations, so there are a lot of news directors and the second largest media company in this country that's looking at your work all the time. And so jobs are constantly changing. We're constantly looking for new people. And I would strongly encourage you to take your work and put it there. I have 4 openings in my newsroom right now, and I no doubt will hire those openings right off this site, because some of the best talent in the country I'm finding right there.
Well, there you go. We've hired about 300 people from the Gray Talent Pool since we launched it first of the year. So it's a good way to really get your start. We have about 8 minutes left, so we have some time for questions. Anything leaping out to you, Stephen, from the chat?
Yeah, we've got a bunch. So I'll start from the beginning where we had quite a few as well. Do Gray Media and their media stations require lots of experience to apply or be hired?
It depends. It depends on where. Like, for example, if you're going to go and apply for a job with Tom, you're going to need more experience than you will if you
Right.
are applying at one of our smaller markets. So the answer is it depends. If you want to live in a large city, yes. If you're willing to start out small, not so much. You just need some talent.
Jalen asked, does Gray TV choose where employees get sent for open jobs, or do we choose?
Of course you choose. I mean, we'll be glad to give you some recommendations if you want us to take a look at your abilities and, what we think you might fit. But I mean, of course, I mean, we don't just send people wherever they want to go. I did see a question I wanted to address because I get it fairly often about entertainment reporting. We don't do that. I don't think. If we have a single person whose sole job is to do entertainment reporting in this company, I don't know who it is. We hire journalists who are passionate about covering what's happening in our communities. Entertainment reporting, you probably have to go somewhere else for that.
A student at Eastern Kentucky University says that she gets nervous in front of the camera, and she wants to know if we've got any tips on how she can improve that and control her anxiety.
Who would like to take? Would one of you guys like to take that one?
Well, one of the things I'll start. One of the things I tell people: look at yourself in the mirror. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Everybody has a camera with a phone on it. Set that camera on a little tripod and just be comfortable. Talk to it. Do your stories there. Go back, look at yourself. save them. And as you get better at what you're doing, it will also ease the fear. Also, remember, you're talking to your mother. When you're giving that story, your mother's going to give you that unconditional love. So visualize yourself just trying to communicate that information to mom. And mom's not going to yell at you. She's not going to tell you that your hair is wrong or your nose is crooked. She's just going to sit there and listen to you and just love you back. And in time, you will find your true self. And that true self will be the person that we hope to put on the air.
How easy, difficult is it to transition from producer to on-air reporter?
It depends. It depends on, think about who you see on TV. It just depends. I'll give you an example of anchoring. A colleague of mine, who's a fellow news director, told me one time that because everybody, I use that term loosely, but it's pretty true. Everybody pretty much wants to be an anchor. I bet you the number of people who have applied strictly to be a reporter is relatively small. She used to tell me that anchoring finds you. You don't find anchoring.
I like that.
It's a way of saying that it's a certain skill to be able to communicate on camera in a genuine way. And if you have that, or if you show the aptitude for that, I can tell you, and I'm just going to echo some of what you've seen in these videos. I worked for CBS for 11 years, a company called Belo, a company called Meredith, Sinclair, and Fox. And I can tell you that Gray does the most exhaustive, and they're building it. They're continuing to build ways to train individuals in the business who are at the station level to get better, to get the skills. You saw it in the video about learning to be an MMJ, learning to be a photographer. So it's no joke. When you look around for opportunities, I would strongly consider you to consider looking at Gray, because you're not on your own here. Let me just say one other thing about the hiring portal that Jennifer and her team put together. Upload your reel if you have one. Upload something of yours if you haven't, because if you're starting out, you may be thinking more likely than not, how do I get in front of these guys and these women who can hire me? How am I going to do that? I mean, I hear some people have agents, but I don't have an agent. How do I do it? Get involved with Gray, get into our hiring system, and I guarantee you that you will have the eyes of news directors and hiring managers all over the country. It's not that hard. Anyway, I've become a really big fan, and a lot of it is because what the company has done, knowing that it's our job to grow the individuals who come to work for us. And it's pretty exciting to see that.
And remember, there's no such thing as a small market viewer. There are small towns, but those viewers are still viewers. And they deserve the best of what you have, like the rest of the folks on a big market. So markets are decided by the number of people who live there. But the information we give, it has to be the same standards that we apply in South Bend that we would apply in Las Vegas or Los Angeles or New York. The standards don't change. The growth of your abilities to do the job may change, but the standards start with that first job.
Absolutely.
A couple of more questions real quick. Someone asked you, tell me where I get a writing exercise from. If you fill out a great talent profile, and I'll send you one. I will warn you, our writing exercises are pretty in depth. So, and I'll be frank, half the people, more than half, 75% of the people who say they'll do a writing exercise don't complete it because it will take you a couple of hours. But if we're going to invest in you and bring you into this career, we feel like it's worth an investment to see your abilities. If an employee won't complete a writing exercise, then I'm not quite sure they're going to complete, like, what are we going to do with the job for that? So fill out a great talent profile. I'll be glad to send you the writing exercise. And then I saw one more question of broadcast engineers, another term for camera operator. No, broadcast engineer works on equipment. They work on transmitters. They work there. I usually have a background in IT of some sort. We actually don't really have camera operators in a lot of our markets. If you mean like studio cameras and production assistants, we're heavily automated in most of our markets. So that's why you really didn't see us talk a lot about that. We do have something called a technical media producer, which kind of programs and directs our newscast. I forgot to put that slide in, so I apologize for skipping over that. And it is now 9 o'clock, so I think we're all going to call it a night. Feel free, if you want to drop in any questions that you have. We'll still be around for a couple more minutes answering them in the chat, the ones that we can. If not, and you're still looking for something, I encourage you to fill out a Gray talent profile at grayishiring.com or apply for a job at gray.tv/careers. All of those links are in the chat. We'll do our best to help you. And thank you guys.
I'm gonna make y'all answer one more question. All three of you have to answer this.
Okay.
What is the paramount piece of advice you would offer to an upcoming broadcast journalist?
Well, I've got a piece of advice that has stuck with me for a long time. It actually comes from a Hollywood A-lister, believe it or not. I mean, who knew?
Who could it possibly be?
I don't know. Her name is Kristen Bell. You might have seen her. You may know the name at least.
Do you know her dad?
I love her work, and I love her because she's my daughter. Here's how she puts it, because people for 20 years have said, either asked me or asked her directly, how do you get into doing that? What can I do? Basically, Kristen Bell, how can I be you? And her answer, I think, applies as much to her business as it does to our business. It's very simple, and it's just do the work. Do the work. Gray Television offers all kinds of opportunities at all kinds of levels. Gary made a point earlier when we were talking before this started about the importance of your first job. Don't worry about where it is. If somebody offers you a job and it pretty much fits what you're interested in, take it, because it's an opportunity to do the work and then just keep building on the work. And that's what happens. That's how she built her career. And that's how successful people do it. There's no getting around it, but you've come to the right place if you're signed up for this, because you've got a company that's supportive. And frankly, I need to see you in a couple of years in my newsroom, because as I pointed out, we do 16 hours of news a day. So I could use the help.
From my lens, don't come into the business looking for happiness. Happiness is within you. Come into the business with the right attitude. And as Tom said, just work your buns off. The more you apply yourself to learning the craft, the quicker you'll be able to get to wherever it is you want to go. But there are no shortcuts. Don't look for them. Come in, be prepared to take any shift, go to any market. The meanest person you're going to find in the newsroom, learn what you can from that mean person. That nicest person you can find in that newsroom, learn what you can from that nice person. The reality is, it's a business. And if you want to be successful in this business, apply yourself to it, and it will give back to you what you put in it.
I guess mine would be, never forget that we're here to serve. I've always tried to take it from that it's my job to serve our viewers, to be a voice for someone who doesn't have one. It's why I'm such a big believer in investigative journalism, and why I spent a significant portion of my time and energy in my career on that. We're here not to show, like, we're not here because we're cute on television. We're not here because we feel like the world should admire us for some reason. We're here to be that voice for someone who doesn't have one, to be that voice to stand in the gap for someone who can't. What was the old investigative journalism saying? We're here to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. That's what I truly believe in my heart of heart. I'm here to help people. All right, and I think that's it. If you guys think of anything, again, recruiting@gray.tv. We're going to try to make this a series. If you have a thought of what you would like to see addressed that we couldn't get to this time, we'll try to see if we can do that next time. Thanks so much to Tom and Gary for giving up part of their evening for us. Two of my favorite people to talk to in our company and to try to get their wisdom. And thanks again to the recruiting team for working late tonight and helping us answer these questions. Thank you, guys. It was so nice meeting you. I hope I get to talk to you soon, and hopefully you'll work for us soon.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.